My guest this week is Bonnie Godsman, President of Finseca and GAMA Global. Bonnie spends her days focused on building relationships and helping professionals stay relevant in a rapidly changing world of insurance, investments, and financial services. This episode you don't want to miss. I'm Paul Blanco, and this is Small Steps, Big Wins. Bonnie Godsman, welcome to Small Steps, Big Wins. I'm so happy to have you on. And I was glad to see you looking very fresh today because when I follow you all the time on social media, and I know you're traveling the world and you were just in Asia for a couple of weeks, as you told me. So I'm glad you're on. I got nervous last night. I looked and I wasn't up to speed and I saw that you were flying home and I'm like, oh man, she really took one for the team here. She's getting on early in the morning. And she's just getting home. So, but I'm glad you got home earlier this week. But welcome to the show.
Thanks, Paul. No, like I said, I have the privilege to see kind of the industry from the global perspective. So I'm happy to be home, back in the good old USA for sure, and just happy to be here. So thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Same here. And, I was really excited about today. And when I think of financial services, it's the word that we use in this industry. People don't really know outside of the industry what that means. And, I got a chance to work with you in different ways through GAMA for many, many years. And I know that you and a lot of people in the industry, which I can't thank enough, took, a big steps for the industry a few years back and tried to, as it keeps I feel like it keeps spreading, meaning we had career and we had independent and now we have all these other sleeves. And I look at my history of, attending in industry meetings and the people that are coming are from financial services now, and it's different. And I think you guys really, really did some great work with GAMA and ALU starting there. But I'd love you to share kind of where we are now and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, Paul, thanks. I think much like you and I, probably same age. This is my 24th year, technically in it, which is amazing to say out loud in the role. But, over the course of that time, I think the concept of financial services has really expanded. And I think we all used to really be in our individual niches, right? You considered yourself a career shop, or maybe you worked in annuities, or you just sold life insurance, or, you got into wealth management and investments. As we talk about holistic planning and kind of what the consumer has exposure to now, the conversations around the trade associations really shifted dramatically. And Mark Hayden, who's the former CEO of ALU, the advanced marketplace for advisors, myself as the legacy CEO of GAMA, really dealing with the leaders, the GAs, the MPs of our universe, Dan Labert, the former CEO of NALBA, the independent space. We really thought it was an opportunity to come together and have more of a unified voice to represent the industry. The niches and the clubs are still important, right? But when we start looking at what we've seen happen through the course of the economic struggles that we've had, the political headwinds we've had, the global impacts that have occurred, really the concept of bringing these organizations together to get scalability of access into the profession, recruitment into the profession, and really being able to scale financial security for all is what kind of birthed the concept of Finseca. And we think moving forward, and we can get into a little bit about some industry insights, some headwinds we're going to be facing, we have found that while that was really, really hard to ask these legacy organizations to kind of take off their jackets and take off their niche, to really serve a bigger calling of financial services and what that means. I think we've all seen, yourself included, your business, what we've seen with a lot of the carriers that have come down. 20 years ago, you probably couldn't even imagine what your business looked like today, right? And so the expansion of that is really serving clients better. It's opening up the marketplace. And quite frankly, I think it's really pushing the innovation of our industry that's really needed to the next level so that we stay relevant and competitive with maybe some of the other industry players that we don't really view as, the best way for people to be financially secure. So that opportunity, I think, is something we couldn't pass up. So we fought really hard. And I think we're starting now to come through the back end of the victories that we faced and, some of the political wins we've had. I think we're going to see that this unification was, 1,000% the right way for us to be moving in financial services together.
Yeah. And can you give us an update where that is today? Like you guys came together and, you took a new role, and I'll get into your day-to-day in a few minutes, but tell us where that is today now.
Yeah.
Perspective.
Yeah, it's it's interesting. So when you take a bunch of CEOs and say we're going to merge all your orgs together, you would think the first thought would be, what's my job going to be? And there was a lot of kind of bowing up to where are we all going to land. And I think in the end, my own personal view of it was, if I'm important and relevant and passionate, I'll find my spot, right? And so through the course of events, I sit as President of Finseca. Part of that has to do with the fact that I run also our global business. GAMA Global is still alive and well in 32 countries and, over 25,000 members. So it was important that we kind of had focuses. As we've transitioned through, we've got now GAMA Foundation, GAMA International, AALU, NALBA, the Forum 400. And while Mark Caden will kill me for saying this publicly, we are in talks with other organizations about kind of joining the list. And so I think ultimate the goal would be that we have a fully unified profession moving forward. But we're happy to say that, from a monetary standpoint, budgets are doing really well. We're seeing the membership engage. We're seeing the political engagement. We're seeing the professional development engagement. Events are back, as we all know, post-COVID. I mean, Paul, you got to enjoy LAMP on the main stage last year with us. So we are extremely optimistic, and we're seeing a lot of momentum moving forward. I think it differentiates us maybe from other organizations out there, just the momentum that we have and kind of the clarity of focus of, what the future needs to look like to be relevant and pertinent to the industry growing for where we need to go to. So we're excited.
Yeah. I'm excited. And, you hit a pretty big chord for me during your last comments when you said that, financial security for everyone. If you look at Barnum, that's pretty much been our mission. At 2020, it's weird. I've been in, I'm actually this week will be 31 years that I've had the privilege to lead Barnum. So, I've been in the industry 34. And
congrats.
Thank you.
And you've built quite a impressive practice while growing and developing your team, Paul, in a way that is outstanding. So, pause there for a moment. Congratulations to you and the team, frankly.
Thank you. And we have a saying around here that I say we're just getting started. So it's really exciting. Thank you for those comments. But when I looked at our 2020 was one of the decades that finally it hit me, and I'm like, holy mackerel, 2020. And we put our 10-year vision out. And one of the things that we had at that point, we had about 250,000 clients at Barnum. And our goal was to get to 1 million by 2030. We're at about 375 now, 4 years in, and we're clicking along. But the question for you is, I look at when you said recruitment and you said financial security for everyone, I feel like one of the problems with the industry right now is the demand, I should say, for everything we sell. When you think of holistic planning, is so great. Consumers really want one-stop shopping, hence everyone merging together and getting those different disciplines to work together. But I feel like, and I could be 100% wrong, but everything I read is, we're at the same amount of advisors. It's kind of shrinking. There's aging, and there's not, I think I saw a stat that said there's only 9% of the advisors under 30. So I'd love to hear what you think about what's going to happen in the next 10 or 12 years. Is that trend? Am I right on the trend that I'm seeing?
Yeah, you're 100% right. One of the privileges I get to see is sitting in my seat is I get to talk to the entire gamut, right? Everyone from our multi-line P&C space to our traditional carriers to the mutuals. And I'll tell you, I was on a call with a large mutual company the other day, and they said to me, 60 of our managing partners are going to retire in the next 7 years. The lack of preparedness that we have for leadership, let alone kind of the gap that we have. So there's a couple of things I think that if the industry doesn't really get right, I think there's a window for us to really dive in and lean into. One is looking at the space in the marketplace in which we serve. Our high net worth marketplace is always there, and we're very familiar with it, and we work in it. I think some of the challenges is a couple of things. One is, how do we recruit into this business and make this business more viable for folks that are coming in? There's an interesting study that came out recently that talks about bringing women into the business. A huge passion of mine. I always say all the time, if I knew about this business when I was in high school, I would have went into it in a heartbeat. And I just didn't know, right? And there is a correlation between the concept of sales and commissions and like that kind of environment that I think kind of the youth coming in, it's interesting. They'll say, I don't really want to work in sales or commissions, yet everyone's willing to go be an influencer or a content creator and base it on how many ad sales and clicks they've got, right? Like it's amazing to me that people don't connect the concepts together. So I think that we're going to start to have to see a way to monetize a stability to bring folks into the business. I also think, and I've said this before, like the pie needs to widen of what we look and feel like. We still are a white male, middle-aged dominated business. And what I will tell you, and even this year at LAMP, we saw it, maybe 10 years ago, we would have had 30, 40 women up on stage. This year we had 300. And while that's not where we would ideally like it to be, it is huge progress. This is an industry that is, over 150 years old. And for us to think we're going to swing a pendulum that fast is probably not realistic. But I think we're seeing now more intentional efforts to be put into what recruitment looks like. And I don't even think it's necessarily about women or people of color or any of that. I mean, that's all really important. Like the whole DE&I conversation is super relevant. But to me, it's more about the job, right? It's more about what does the calling do, telling the story. We've talked about this before, Paul. We are terrible at explaining the passion behind the business. There are people that if they really understood, the impact and the income opportunities and just really the independence that this business can provide, I think we'd have a lot more in it. So we're just not getting it right. I wish I had a better answer for you, but I definitely think that that's the issue. Second for me is a leadership void. We have focused so heavily on retention of advisors that we've kind of diluted the concept of succession planning. I mean, you're a great example of making sure it's about the team, not about Paul Blanco, right? I mean, you're the leader, of course, but it's really about what does that team look like? And I'm super excited to listen to a lot of your colleagues finally turn to that effort. But I think we're a little late in becoming intentional about it. So I think we have some opportunity to hit that into high gear. But for me, that's where it has to go, or we're going to find ourselves serving even less. We already know that there's a huge gap in who we serve. And then finally, I think it's really looking about your marketplace. COVID has shown us that there is a massive opportunity for us to financially secure people, and getting at that in a way that makes sense for the more established and experienced firms that we have out there. I think, again, it's going to be a personal calling and decisions on how you want to go about your business. But the accessibility to financial planning, partner that with us making better concerted efforts of financial literacy. We're finally now at Finseca with our foundation having an opportunity to influence at the high school level. So talking about the career more, everyone wants to be a doctor or a lawyer, and then having that influence at that level there for people to think about that, and then having them just having access to think about money. It's amazing. We'll go into high school and we'll talk to these kids and they'll say, my mom and dad are terrible with money. I don't want to be terrible with money. And more of the conversations I have with young folks that are in risk management or getting their degree in finance, they'll say, like, I went into this because money was a problem growing up, and I don't want that to be a problem for me or other people. So there is a shift going on we're seeing. I just wish it was faster and more intentional, but I think we're getting there at a pace I haven't seen before in my time, in the profession here.
I agree. And I think back to even when I started, and today, due to I always say this pretty much every episode, that COVID had so many bad things, but there was so much good that happened for our industry. Just what we're able to do today, being on Zoom and feeling like you're together. But I think one of the things I remember today, you don't need a car to be a financial advisor like you used to have a car, right? And you probably don't need suits as much as you did before, where every day you were suited up, and it's become less formal in that sense, not right or wrong, but it's been less formal. So I always say that I was able to become an entrepreneur and start for $5,000. And today can probably get in this industry for $2,500 and start your own franchise and be in business for yourself, but not by yourself, because you could be with a company that's going to give you some of the other resources that you don't have. And I think that story is not out there well enough. I agree with you. And you talk about doctor lawyer thing. They get out of school and they got to pump a ton of money into their business just to get started without having one customer. So I do think we have an opportunity there to change that. So
yeah,
I agree.
I agree 100%. I mean, you look at these more traditional careers and there's really only one or two paths to get to success. In our business, uniquely, we have multiple paths to get to success. And I think I spent a lot of time educating these kids that are in college about those different opportunities. You can do this model or this model or this model or this model. And they're just blown away. They just don't know. And I think it presents great opportunities. Someone somewhere that's interested will have the light bulb go off and go, that sounds like me. That's how I want to get at that kind of career. And I think we're missing that.
I agree 100%. And I do think we have to start bringing people in from other industries that see this opportunity and they went in thinking they had a great opportunity. They didn't realize, as you said, they didn't know about this. I remember coming home and telling my dad I was going into the business and he was so mad at me. Like, I can't believe you got a college degree to go do this. And I'm like, you have no idea. Thank God for my mom backing me, or else I would be in trouble. One of the things we do at Barnum, we hire probably 40 college grads right off the campus. And we actually have the parents come in and meet with them.
100%.
And they need to be on board with their son or daughter at this stage, because it's not easy to get started in the business. So I think there's a big change there. But you made a comment earlier, and I never realized it was that many people, 25,000 members globally. And I know that your day to day and your role as the president here is you run, international, and you travel overseas all the time. Is there anything you're seeing there that should come back domestically to help us grow when you think about the size and the growth that they there? So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. It's interesting. There are two things that show up for me outside of the United States that don't show up internally, I would say, here as much. One is they spend a ton of time talking about the impact of the business. They do a great job of storytelling. So when you have younger people that are thinking about what their careers are, what they want to do, what they want to go into, when they talk about life insurance or they talk about financial security, they view it as a much more positive opportunity to impact the world. I was over in the Philippines in my trip through Asia, and a lot of their education they were doing was on how to tell the story of the impact you can have as an individual, because it's very important to the youth. We're seeing a lot of these economies. They're down 40% in the business in Asia right now. They're really economically challenged in a different way than we are coming out of COVID. And the conversation about being financially stable is seen as a badge of pride, right? Whereas in the US, we're constantly on defense. We're constantly trying to convince people to join our business. Whereas we're seeing in Asia, the way they are presenting and positioning the narrative around the opportunity is significantly, it's something the US can learn 100%. The second thing I'll say that they do a really great job in, and again, my focus, on the leadership side, is they really look at rewarding and recognition for the stability of the industry, right? So I think we all know other organizations that, and even internally, with your organization and in the carriers, we're focused on really looking at the advisors. How do we reward them, and how do we recognize them, and those kinds of things. And I would say the shift in Asia that I've seen is they really are looking at the leadership teams. They're looking at the GAs and the MPs, and they are rewarding, making sure that it will continue on beyond their legacy, right? And so I've seen that something that it's a priority there, and it's a priority from the carrier top down. A little different, obviously, outside the the U.S. The carriers and the home offices have a lot of influence on the field, and so it's just kind of a hierarchical system that they work within. But it is becoming an intentional priority for the organizations to really start to say, it's great, you've got all these great, robust advisors, great, your retention rate's high, great. What does your leadership transition plan look for? So all these advisors that are looking to Paul Blanco and the team, Paul Blanco, unfortunately isn't with us anymore for whatever reason, does Barnum continue on with the strength and the power and the prestige and the reputation it once had? So those are two things I've seen that have become focuses from outside the U.S. that I think the U.S. can do better in. Flip side to that, what we're seeing, the U.S. is by far 1 to 2 decades ahead of a lot of the countries that we are working in, as far as it's why they love coming to LAMP USA, right? They get to learn what's the next thing that the U.S. is doing, and they'll kind of infiltrate that. What I will tell you, and I'm sure we'll get into this in a little bit, the complexity of the government intervention, the complexity of regulation, the complexity of compliance is something they've never really had to deal with before. We've dealt with it forever, but it's coming into their business, and so something they are interested in is how do we navigate that space, because we know it best, right? And we have a bunch of lawmakers that are coming in and regulators that probably with the best of intentions to want to protect the client and the customer, but really they are trying to learn of how to partner in those spaces as opposed to it being like an offense-defense kind of relationship. So they're struggling a bit there with that. They can learn a lot from us, I think, in that perspective.
That's great. Well, I want to take number one on, because I agree with you. We started a thing at Barnum called Unseen Impact to help the emotional side. But I agree. Do you think the emotional side of the business in the U.S. has changed due to it becoming holistic? And, because I try to say, like, I grew up on the protection side and I learned that emotional side. And by the way, there's an emotional side here, because if you don't have enough money, then you can't retire and have the lifestyle you want to have, and you won't outlive your money. Do you think once we became more holistic, that has changed? I'm just really curious.
100%. I mean, I think the narrative in our business, at least the space you and I have been in historically, has been, let's make sure when someone dies, the family's protected. And I think with COVID, I think with social media, with lifestyle emergence, I'll call it, the conversation really isn't really anymore about death, right? It's about life. And I think the conversation of holistic planning and how we get at money and how we use money and how we take every dollar and apply it to our advantage in modern day. And it's not something we tuck away and just wait to use. I think that conversation has swung hard in post-COVID times. I have a ton of friends that are, asking me, well, Bon, it's great, like retirement, and I want to do that. And I want that good, but like, how do I do this now? Right. And I think if we look at the conversations we're having in the 2024 election, how do people buy homes, right? How do they take a vacation? How do they make sure their family is able to achieve modern day goals that they want, not just, oh, if something happens to the breadwinner, will we be able to stay in our house? Like, I think the conversation, while that's important, and to your point, the risk management and the protective side is so, we believe, fundamental, right, to the business. There's so much more conversation that it wasn't about even 10 years ago, I think. So I agree 100% that the holistic approach to how we're getting at it, how we're using money, how we're investing, 100% is
changing the language.
It's so fast too. I mean, it's so fast how it's changing.
I love that. I love what you said about death and life. I think that's a really, I'm going to use that. So I hope you'll start hearing more about that from Paul. I guess where I'd like to spend the rest of the time here is, you talked about headwinds coming to the industry, and, you guys didn't just come together for the economic part of it. You came together to have a united front to help the industry continue to be relevant in times. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important that all advisors hear from you the headwinds that are coming and what they can do to help to ensure that we stay relevant and we're able to still deliver for clients the way we do today.
Yeah, one of the major reasons I was compelled to kind of approach our leadership to see if this merger was a good idea was, as you know, GAMA never was involved in politics. We were strictly leadership and professional development, education, training. That's really where we sat. And what was happening is we would always partner with our sister orgs if a political issue came up, right? And what was happening more and more was, especially from a leadership perspective, not being engaged in the regulation, not being engaged in the conversations that are happening at your state level, let alone the federal level, became a conversation of necessity, I think, for a lot of the membership. And it was one of the really compelling ideas. ALU's done a great job of representing our industry up on Capitol Hill, at the White House, with our friends at FINRA, the NAIC, our friends at ACLI. But But really, it became more of an important conversation because we started seeing regulation. We started seeing, DOL come through. As you all know, that's a huge initiative for us and challenge moving forward. Tax reform, we can get into that a little bit with the upcoming election, is going to be huge. So as an advisor, especially if you are at a level where there's complexity in your business that will be affected, for you not to know, thoroughly grasp, and not just understand, but actively impact regulation and laws that are going to be put in place, for you not to have an active role is, I consider, irresponsible at this point, right? And so one of the responsibilities of Finseca is to create a pathway for our members to engage directly with members of Congress, directly with the political engagement side of the business. So people can be ambassadors, which would mean at your state and local level, you can influence who gets elected. You can be in meetings that can really sit down and explain to these lawmakers. Let's face it, a lot of our elected officials are elected because of something that happened in their life, or they're not just generic, right? So to think about their day and kind of the scope of what we're asking them, we're asking them to think about schools, we're asking them to think about gun control, we're asking them to think about reproductive rights, we're asking them to think about, and then we throw financial services in there. For us to assume that they're going to be any sort of experts is insane, right? And so it is our job to get in front of them, to explain to them the business, how it works, how it affects the client. And ultimately, if we get really good and we get really influential, when a topic comes up, they'll say, you know what, let me call Finseca and let me see if they have an opinion on this. Like, I don't care what anyone says and what side of the fence you sit on. If a gun control issue comes up, if you don't think that the NRA isn't called by both sides to know what their responsibility is going to be or responses are going to be to this, like, it's just delusional. So the ultimate goal is that Finseca has the industry impact, the people that are out in the field, your advisors, Paul, that every day are going to say, hey, if you make this move here, it's going to positively affect my client this way, or it is going to negatively impact planning, promises we've made, things we've had in place for a long time. So I would encourage, you have to get out of your organization. You have to get outside of your state. You have to get, outside of, you just doing your day to day and really make an impact. So by joining Finseca, by being an ambassador, by getting engaged on fly-ins, impact days we have, it really brings your business to a whole nother level. And when you are dealing with complex business owners, they may know more than you do at some points, right? And so a responsibility of education of what's coming down pipeline is going to be huge. In regard to the 2024 election, anyone that is dealing with anyone that pays taxes had better understand what tax reform is going to look like based upon who wins the presidency this year. And one of the ways they get that is obviously through the work that we're doing inside Finseca and the education that's going to be there. Because if not, they're just going to get hit with a 2x4 and suddenly going to have to explain to a client while the cheese has moved by tens, hundreds, millions of dollars for them, and that they didn't do anything about that when they had an opportunity to. It's just a huge miss for us. So we feel very strongly about it.
Well, and it's interesting as I'm listening, it's people are delegating their own career to a small amount of people in the industry, where if everyone just looked inward and said, how can I just be a part of this and help, it would change the game for our industry. And we would be like the NRA, where we're getting the call from both sides on every single opportunity. So I think for all the people listening, stop right here and you should be becoming members of Finseca, and you should be getting involved, and you should educate yourself to help all of us in the industry to continue to grow. And you think about the great entrepreneur opportunity that we have in front of us. It could all change very quickly if we don't support it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Vote or don't complain, right? It's the next level of that,
fair.
right?
Yeah, it's a fair point.
It's not just saying I'm going to vote for this person for president. It's, have you actively worked on a campaign? Have you actively tried to influence? Have you actively met with? Have you attended a fundraiser? Have you gotten your voice and you are representing your client? That's really what it breaks down to. And so we feel, as you can tell, very, very passionately and strongly about it. And it's not something Mark or I can do, right? We need your team, Paul, in there in Connecticut or wherever they're based out of in your Barnum empire, to be having those conversations at the state level and at the federal level. There's some serious concerns going into 2025 that is absolutely going to affect the way every single person listening to this podcast does business. 100%. Guaranteed.
No, and I appreciate all that you do and your team, which is amazing. Thank you for that. When I think about yourself now, like, you got a lot of juice left in the tank here. You're making impact every single day. You're running and, there's so many things like we talked about, from the leadership problems to the advisor problems to the political and the headwinds coming at us. What's next for you? What are you like? Where are you heading?
It's interesting. When you're younger, you think you know everything. And then as you get older, you realize you know nothing. And so, I have this internal conversation. I think we all probably do, pretty regularly. The merger for me personally was a resurgence for me of getting re-engaged, recommitted, reinvested. And the thought of not being here in some capacity is almost paralyzing to me. And I would say for me personally, Finseca, myself, we are just getting started, as you would say, right? I mean, conversations like this, seeing with super clarity where the opportunities are to keep going. I just don't feel finished yet. I have a huge passion around women in the business. I think there is a ton of work to be done there. And then, bringing the youth in around folks understanding. There is nothing more satisfying to me than having a friend of mine call me and say, "Hey, Bonnie, you connected me with so-and-so financial advisor and I paid off all my debt this year." Or, "Hey, Bon, we're able to send our kids to the college they wanted to go to. Thank you." I had a friend of mine have her husband pass away and I introduced her to her financial advisor. And then, when they got married, they got a policy and he was killed, unfortunately. And at the funeral, she was like, because of what you did. And so the power behind our profession and the impact that we have is what still fuels me every day. But I would say my next frontier will definitely still be in financial services. Like I said, not done yet with all the Finseca movements for sure, but definitely leaning towards how do we bring more orgs in and how do we scale the voice for the profession? I mean, I don't see myself leaving and leading the association for doctors. That's not where my passions will lie after the run here. And I will definitely say through the course of my career, I have had the privilege to be around great leaders. My husband reminds me, "Bonnie, you grew up with great mentors, around every corner, every board seat, every committee chair, every lamp speaker, every GA, they're just doing it from a leadership perspective that other people don't have the privilege, even with the merger, just haven't had the privilege to be around." So I don't know yet. I think I'm still on the great path. I do know I'm not done here yet, but the global side of the business definitely provides a little bit of relief for me, just to see how much work there still is left to be done in the world. I mean, I come back to the US and kiss the ground. Trust and believe. I've been all over the world. And while I think there are outstanding countries and communities, the United States still, in my opinion, is the best place to be. But the opportunity to impact the world is pretty compelling for me at the moment.
I love it. It's interesting. Last comment for me, when you were talking about how you look at the impact that the client has, the end user, I wanted to be in leadership from the first day I came into the business. And I was always a leader, but I was so scared when I took this role, and I had to convince myself that was still going to happen through others. Right. So I was out with clients. And so every day, the 300,000 advisors that are in the business, I say thank you to them personally, because they're out there carrying on the message. I'm building a platform here for advisors to make it less hard for them. Right. And but at the same point, they're impacting lives out there, and we have to do that in spades and continue to do that even more. So, Well, I want to close on saying a huge thank you to you, because the work you're doing, as everyone has heard here, so please get involved. But the work you're doing is amazing, and you have been a leader, and you have been a mentor to so many from far. you might not even realize the impact you're having on their lives. So thank you for what you're doing, and keep doing it, please. And keep doing it with the passion you have. And when I think of, the name of the show is Small Steps, Big Wins. I was very big on this word called stacking, where you're stacking one good day on top of the others. That's the small steps. And then you get the big wins. And when I look at what you've done from GAMA to now your role as the president of Finseca and what you're doing internationally, you're doing that every single day. So it's so refreshing for me to sit here and see an industry leader like you do what you're doing. So thank you, Bonnie, from the bottom of my heart for what you do every day.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Paul. Somebody said to me the other day, to your point, you kind of have these moments that are stackable, like you said. And somebody said to me, Bonnie, I hope you realize you're probably one of the most well-known financial services professionals around the world. And I was like, oh, blah, 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 stop. Right. And then I was thinking through it, and I'm like, well, if I look at all the domestic companies that we know and the influencers and the people that are leading the field, as well as the home offices, and we look at globally in the major player, companies, I kind of had a humbling moment where I was like, wow, like that, you just don't realize it. Right. And so I love the concept of the stackable progress that we've made. So I'm very proud of the work that I've done in this profession. I am very proud, Paul, to call you a friend. I am very proud of all of our members and what we're doing. And I'm very proud of the legacy organizations having the boldness and the trust, quite frankly, the trust to kind of move the organizations together to reunify. So onward and upward, my friend, as I like to say, on to the next stackable moment. So thank you for having me, Paul, and congratulations to you and the team. You guys continue to just be servant leaders of excellence. And so I admire everything y'all are doing. So thank you.
Thank you. So, and everybody here, Small Steps, Big Wins, Apple, Spotify, share it. If you're not sharing episodes right now, share this one, please, because we need everybody here to help impact this industry. So Bonnie, Godsman, thanks again. And everybody have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Small Steps, Big Wins. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
All opinions expressed by the program participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions their respective parent companies or affiliates or the companies with which the program participants are affiliated. Investments or strategies mentioned in this program may not be suitable for you, and you should make your own independent decision regarding them. This material does not take into account your particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs, and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. You should strongly consider seeking advice from your own investment advisor. Securities and investment advisory services offered through qualified registered representatives of MML Investor Services, LLC. Member SIPC, 6 Corporate Drive, Shelton, Connecticut, 06484, telephone number 203-513-6000.